Have you ever loved somebody so fiercely and then lose that person? It doesn't have to be romantic, it can be family or friend. Um, so you love them so fiercely and then you lose them, and of course there's anger and anguish and sadness, but after some time when you get to that point where you accept it, have you ever found yourself just wondering, looking back and just wondering, were you able to love that person enough? Like, were you able to love that person enough and the right way for them? Were you able to love them enough for them to feel happy? Were you able to make them happy? Or were you able to make them realize just how much you value them? And were you able to love them enough for them to love you back? And that was, I think, the reigning emotion I had in me when I was watching this movie. It's a story of a family, an unconventional one. They're not related by blood, they just choose to be a family. And it's such a beautiful family, it's such a beautiful love, but they are forced apart by the system. So the family is actually the grandmother, and then there is Osamu, which is the father, Nobuyo, which is the mother, Aki, which is the eldest sister, Shota, which is the middle child or the brother, and then there's the youngest kid, which is Juri. And as the story unravels, there's a lot of dysfunctions that you will discover. In fact, the whole manner by which they came together is a dysfunctional kind of story. The movie starts off with the father and Shota shoplifting, and then on their way home they found the kid, Juri, whom at that time they didn't know, but she seemed hungry, and so they fed her, and when they realized that she was still hungry, they decided to take her home. We move into this house which is so cramped, so small for them, but also dirty. It's not organized. But even in that moment, you everything transitions. Everything that you see kind of changes. Everything that seemed obvious is not so obvious anymore as you watch the family interact with each other, and you feel the warmth, the comfort, how comfortable they are with each other. And you kind of realize that, there's something in there, there's something special in there. But that's also very quickly broken down as the more of the dysfunction and the bad side of the family is unraveled and shown to you. So they actually wanted to return Juri after dinner. They just wanted to feed her, and then they realized that she was unwanted in her own home and she was being abused. So they decided to keep her. We also discovered that Shota was actually either kidnapped or saved. So they found Shota stuck in a car, and it was very hot, and so they decided to break the window and just take Shota home. And then there's Aki, the eldest sister, who's a sex worker. Well, she's not really a whore. She's not getting paid for sex, but she does get paid for sexual acts. And then the grandmother, her husband divorced her when she couldn't conceive a child, and so the ex-husband remarried, and then had a daughter, and then the granddaughter is actually Aki. So grandmother and Aki are not related by blood, but there is a connection in their story. And then there is Osamu and Nobuyo, which they're actually a couple, but it is implied that they killed the husband of Nobuyo, and he was an abusive husband, and so they ran away together, and then they were able to build this family. And so on the surface, you kind of feel like they are not right for each other. They're not meant to be together. But just as every time a dysfunction is unraveled, every time we reveal or see or discover something bad about the family, very quickly it is followed by the love and the connection of the family. And there's that rhythm, because whenever the director would reveal something bad about the family or the dysfunctional side of the family, it would always be something grand, something big, like the grocery when they were shoplifting, somebody chasing somebody in the street. So there's always these wide shots, there's light and brightness. But whenever they show the family being together, being a family, and exchanging this warmth and comforting each other and taking care of each other, it's always very intimate in terms of the action and in terms of the space. It will be inside a car or inside the house or in a garden or things like that. But as you get to know them, it's as if the director is trying to trick you to become a member of the family, and he's very successful at that, at least for me. So as you become a member of the family, as you learn of their love for each other, you kind of forget the dysfunctional side. You forget the bad side because you just feel like they're so right for each other. You kind of forget that this is doomed from the very start, like most relationships are. Not just romantic, again, as there are some relationships that are just not meant to be. But because that moment of love, and that the moment that they have right there is so beautiful, you kind of forget that they're doomed to start, doomed from the start, and you kind of ignore the heartache that is sure to happen. The expression of love, the way that the director laid out the kind of relationships they had for each other, is so beautiful. It's so intimate. It's like blink and you'll miss it. It's almost in those very, very small, and even in the way that he would reveal more about the character, it's almost always so intimate. I guess that's why the director would always use cramped spaces, like very, very tight shots, because he wants you to pay attention, because if you don't pay attention, you will miss it. So one example would be when Judy was shopping for clothes, because she didn't have any clothes when they decided to keep her. She stood very straight as they were fitting clothes on her, and she just asked, "Are you going to hit me after shopping for me?" And that was like a brick that hit Nobuya in the face and in the heart, because she realized that, sure, when they were taking her back, she heard that she was unwanted and that she's probably getting abused, but to hear it from the child, she realized just how much pain and misery and abuse the child was going through. And so when they went back home, she hugged the child really, really tight and said, this is how you're supposed to be loved. And even the child, because she was crying, Nobuya was crying, and when the child reached for her cheeks to wipe her tears, it was so subtle. It wasn't like a grand gesture. And then there's Shota, who would have this small moments, comedic moments most of the time with Osamu. And Osamu always asking, "Will you call me a dad now?" That's how, almost always their conversations would end. But so you kind of know that Osamu, the father, wants to be the dad to these kids. And there's also that intimate moment, very, very beautiful moment between the grandmother and Aki, the eldest sister. Well, they were talking, and they kind of Aki just told the mother, I chose the grandmother, I chose you. And the grandmother said, "I chose you too." And there wasn't like hugging or crying. It wasn't that. They were just talking, and there was a very brief glance, a very brief look in their eyes that you just have to catch when you kind of feel like there's this sort of joy and peace in them to be able to express it, and that's enough for them. And I guess it again brings me back into our real life, because our relationships, the expression of our love for other people and the way other people express their love to us, it's not always grand. That doesn't really come every day. It doesn't really happen every day. Most of the time, it's always very subtle, and if you blink, if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. But then the inevitable happened, and it's when it happens, you're so deep into that love in the family that you kind of are shocked that it's happening. And it happened when Shota and the little kid were shoplifting together, and the little kid Judy was going to get caught, and so Shota decided to take the attention away from his little sister and take it and run away, and so that he got chased, and everyone left the little kid alone. And that actually started the downward spiral of the kids, of the entire family, because they got caught, and something happened to Shota that he was hospitalized, and so they were getting interrogated, and that when that's when you as an audience would just realize, there's no way they're gonna stay together. They are going to fall apart. But I guess the most, and even as it's coming, there's still certain painful moments that you as an audience will realize just how deep the pain is for them. And that specifically, one thing that happened to Nobuya is that when she was getting asked, she was being interrogated and she was trying to defend it. She said that I'm a good mother to them, I love them, I'm their mother, we're a family, I've loved them with all my heart, I've done everything for them. And then the police officer actually asked her, what do they call you? And it had so much, that question had so much in it, because she said, it just, you can see it in her face, like it was reality slapping her in the face. And she said, I also wonder. And what she was really, really saying is that I don't know if they love me back. I don't know if they love them enough, and I don't know if I love them the right way. And so, yeah, it brought me back into those moments, all the people that I've loved and lost, and just had to ask myself, did I love them enough? Did I love them the right way? Yeah. and then there's Osamu. He was also getting interrogated. He was being asked about how all of this happened, and he was asked, why were you teaching the kid how to shoplift? And he said, the most painful truth.
他に教えられることが何にもないんです。
And this, how one of the most popular breakup lines is that I'm not good enough for you. That's why I'm breaking up with you. And most of the time it's really not true. But in this situation, it is true, because they aren't good enough. They're inadequate to become parents. The truth is that there are better parents out there for the two kids. They have the right love, but they're the wrong people for them. And that was when the reality had to force itself into Osamu. Again, it makes me wonder, how many people in our lives were we not good enough for, or how many people in our lives are not good enough for us. It's not us questioning whether we love them enough or they love us enough, but is it just the right person for us? So in the effort of the police officer to try and pull the family apart, they did plant some doubts within the family, and one of them is Shota. They told Shota that they caught the family leaving, that they were packing their bags and they were going to abandon him, and in the beginning he didn't believe them. Osamu, the wife, was the one who ended up going to prison. I think she just took all the blame so that the husband wouldn't have to go to prison again, because apparently he was once in prison. The little kid Juri was sent back to her biological parents, and Shota was sent to a shelter where he was getting fed 3 times a day, and that he was going to school. They were able to see each other, though. At some point, Osamu actually met up with Shota, and they decided to visit Nobuyo because Nobuyo requested for Shota to come. And so during the visit, it was so painful, because you can see how much Nobuyo misses Shota. And she was asking him how you are, are you okay? Are you taken care of? Are you happy? Are you studying? And then, she was giving him all the answers, all the right answers, and she just did the one thing that no one in that environment did. Not the parents, not the actual biological parents of Juri, not the biological parents of Aki, and not even the police. She did the greatest sacrifice, and that's when she decided she was going to set them free. And when she was going back inside, the conversation was over, the visit time was over, she was going back inside, that one last look and that one last smile that she gave Shota, it was so painful, because it was the most beautiful love, the purest kind of love, but also very painful. It just tore me apart. And Osamu at that point was still not sort of fully accepting it, because when he brought Shota home, he had an apartment, a very small one. He was sort of telling Shota, you can stay here. It's a small one, but you can stay here. The bathroom is functional, and it's a small one, but we can stay here together. And that Shota also wanted to stay, and Shota in fact stayed for the night. He said, I can't go back, they're going to scold me. And so he decided to stay that night, and they played in the snow because it started snowing, and they were forming a snowman, which was a very simple and beautiful snowman, but also imperfect. It's very much like the kind of situation they had. It was beautiful but imperfect. And so somewhere there, Osamu just came to that realization that, his wife is actually correct. They're no good for him. And so when they were in bed, Shota asked him, were you really trying to leave me, just like the police said you were trying to run away and abandon me? And that with the right answer, he was going to stay. He was going to stay with Osamu, because he didn't want to believe what the police officers were saying. It was told him. But Osamu just did exactly what Nobuya did, and that was to set him free. It's just that apparently, if I have a Japanese friend, and he told me that Japanese, but culturally, if you want to set somebody free, you actually try to hurt that person so that it's easier for that person to leave you. It's sort of one way of saying, I don't want this, but I'm gonna have to hurt you so that it's easier for you to leave. And so that was what was happening. He was hurting his son. He was hurting Shota so that it will make it easier for Shota to just leave, because he was no good for him. And Shota was very much Osamu's son, because there were a lot of questions on whether Shota, the kid Shota, was actually trying to get caught or was really just trying to save his sister. And he did the same thing. He hurt his father so that it'll be easier for his father to set him free. And he said, yeah, I wanted to get caught. In the last minute, when Shota was already in the bus, in the last minute, Osamu was chasing after the bus, because I guess, it dawned on him. Even when you have, and you're decided you're going to set somebody free, still there's that moment when that person leaves and you realize, God, this is so painful. And he was running after the bus, but Shota refuses to look back at Osamu until he was almost completely out of his sight. And only then did he actually say the one thing that Osamu has been wanting to hear, and the one thing that Shota has been wanting to say, and the one thing that we all need to hear to confirm that they are indeed a family and that they wanted to be together, and that is to call him Dad. So there's just so much emotions in that movie. There's so much love and there's so much pain, and it's just, it's a perfect visualization. It's a perfect story that depicts our everyday experience of love, because there's always that relationship we have that seems so wrong, fundamentally or on the surface seems so wrong, but just because of the love and the connection, it feels so right, but still doomed from the very start. But because it's the love is so beautiful, and there's that, it feels like home, you kind of don't want to let go, but doesn't save you from the pain of what's inevitable. But I guess more importantly, the one thing that I realized is that we just have to love, the people that we have right now, regardless of the end, whether or not we will lose them in the end, whether or not they will lose us they will lose us in the end. We just gotta love and just make sure it counts, and make sure that you make them happy, and that they know their value, and hope that they love you back. So if you want to watch Shoplifters, you just have to subscribe to our newsletter, and you will be able to watch this for free. No credit card, no malware, no nothing. and you will also get a free movie, several movies for free every week, just as long as you stay subscribed. Just the link is in the description box. Sign up to our newsletter. After that, you are going to get a welcome letter with the links for some of the movies, and then on a weekly basis we're sending out new movies. And enjoy.